2,000 years ago, one city controlled much of the known world around the Mediterranean. They built roads that still exist today. They engineered water systems that modern cities still struggle to match. And when they wanted to prove they had mastered nature itself, they built an arena where 50,000 people could sit and watch men fight lions, leopards, and each other. This is the story of how ancient Rome rose to absolute power and how it all fell apart. To understand Rome at its peak, you have to look at what they built for fun. In the heart of the city stood the Colosseum, the largest amphitheater ever constructed. When the Emperor Titus inaugurated it in the year 80 AD, the celebration did not last for a weekend. It lasted for 100 days. The Romans did not just build a stadium, they built a machine for spectacle. Below the wooden floor of the arena was a dark, suffocating labyrinth called the Hypogeum. Down there, hundreds of slaves and workers operated a massive system of ropes, wooden elevators, and trapdoors. The heat was intense, the smell of sweat and fear was overpowering, and the noise of creaking timber and roaring crowds above was deafening. This underground machinery allowed the Romans to stage surprises that seemed like magic. A gladiator could be standing in the center of the sand when a trapdoor suddenly snapped open, and a starving lion would leap out from the darkness. But the Romans wanted to show that they could conquer more than just animals. They wanted to conquer the sea. Before the underground labyrinth was fully built, ancient accounts and archaeological drainage evidence suggest that the Romans could flood the early arena for mock naval battles. Rome also staged these spectacles, called naumachii, in purpose-built water basins. Scaled-down warships moved through shallow water, and condemned men could be forced into deadly combat for the crowd. It was a terrifying display of engineering and cruelty, designed to send one clear message: Rome controlled land, people, and even the sea. The most famous fighters in the arena were the gladiators. They were slaves, prisoners of war, and sometimes free men who fought for glory and money. They trained in specialized schools, learning specific fighting styles. A heavily armored gladiator with a sword and shield might be paired against a lighter, faster fighter armed only with a net and a trident. The matchups were designed to be entertaining, balancing strength against speed. But contrary to popular belief, they did not always fight to the death. Gladiators were expensive to train, house, and feed. Their owners did not want to lose their investments unnecessarily. They fought under strict rules, with referees watching closely. If a fighter fought bravely but was overpowered, he could raise a finger to concede defeat. The crowd would scream their verdict, but the final decision belonged to the emperor or the official hosting the games. Films have taught us that a thumbs down meant death and a thumbs up meant life. But the exact Roman hand signal is still debated. What is clear is that a defeated fighter could sometimes be spared or killed at the host's decision. It was a brutal system, but it was organized, structured, and completely under Roman control. That control extended far beyond the arena. At its height, the Roman Empire stretched from the rain-soaked hills of Britain to the burning deserts of North Africa, and from the coast of Spain to the edges of the Middle East. They ruled over tens of millions of people, bringing diverse cultures under a single administrative system. They connected this vast territory with a network of stone roads so well engineered that you can still walk on some of them today. The roads supported trade and travel, but above all, they let Roman legions march quickly toward any rebellion or invasion. They built aqueducts that carried fresh water for miles across valleys, dropping at a precise angle to keep the water flowing perfectly into the cities. They established a system of laws and administration that would form the basis of modern Western governments. To a Roman citizen living in the 2nd century, the empire must have seemed invincible. It was the center of the universe, and it looked like it would last forever. But empires do not last forever, and Rome's collapse was not a sudden explosion. It was a slow, agonizing unraveling. The fall of Rome was not caused by one bad emperor or one single battle. It was a combination of forces that slowly crushed the empire from the inside out. The empire faced enormous distances and expensive frontiers, but size alone did not destroy it. Over time, political instability, civil war, military pressure, fiscal strain, and changing conditions beyond the borders fed into one another. The Roman army remained formidable, but commanders increasingly competed for power, and some units' loyalty was tied more to particular generals than to the wider state. The empire also faced serious fiscal and economic pressures: wars, government spending, disrupted trade, harsh taxation, and the debasement of coinage strained communities and weakened confidence in the currency. The effects varied across the empire, but the western provinces had fewer resources than the east to recover from repeated crises. At the same time, the political system became dangerously unstable. In the 3rd century, Rome went through 50 years of chaos where dozens of generals declared themselves emperor, only to be assassinated a few months later. The constant civil wars drained the empire's resources and left the borders wide open. Beyond the frontiers were many different peoples the Romans called barbarians, an outsider label, not a description of simple societies. Rome had long traded, fought, recruited, and negotiated with them. In the 4th and 5th centuries, some groups moved into Roman territory under intense pressure, including from the Huns. As Western imperial power weakened, these groups gained more autonomy and established kingdoms on Roman land. In the year 410, the unthinkable happened. The Visigoths, led by a king named Alaric, entered Rome after sieges and failed negotiations. For 3 days, they looted the ancient capital. It was the first time in roughly 800 years that Rome had fallen to a foreign enemy, and the shockwaves were felt across the empire. Over the next few decades, the Western Roman Empire fractured into rival kingdoms in Spain, Gaul, and North Africa. Many new rulers adopted Roman laws, language, officials, and traditions, but the central authority in the West no longer had the power to command the old empire. The final conventional marker came in 476. A Germanic military leader named Odoacer deposed a teenage boy named Romulus Augustulus, the last emperor of the West. Odoacer did not take the imperial title for himself. He sent the imperial insignia east to Constantinople. But this was not the end of Rome everywhere. The Eastern Roman Empire was richer, more stable, and better positioned to survive. It continued from Constantinople for nearly another 1,000 years. What died in 476 was the Western imperial government, the system that had once controlled Britain, Gaul, Spain, Italy, and North Africa from Rome. In the West, some aqueducts and roads fell into disrepair as old tax systems and city governments weakened. The Colosseum, once a stage for roaring crowds, animal hunts, mechanical surprises, and possibly early naval spectacles, was eventually abandoned. Over the centuries, people used it as a fortress, a quarry for building materials, and even a place to dump rubble. The giant arena outlived the empire that built it. Yet Rome never truly vanished. Latin evolved into French, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, and Romanian. Roman law, architecture, roads, civic ideas, and political symbols shaped the societies that followed. The Roman Empire fell apart, but its fragments became part of the modern world. That is the real lesson of Rome. Its power did not disappear because one enemy kicked down one gate. It became too difficult for the Western state to manage its own crises, pay its armies, control its leaders, and hold its territories together. The world did not simply end in 476, it changed, and the ruins of Rome still stand as a warning to every civilization that comes after it. No matter how powerful you are, no matter how much of the world you control, nothing lasts forever. Subscribe to Orin for more stories from the ancient world.